Hello, and welcome to our weekly world reading for Dose of Truth Tarot. And we're going to look at something nice and simple for the world. What energy is humanity collectively moving through this week? So we'll look at that with the cards. Let's see what the primary energy is for this week. All right, number one. First card, indolence. So, indolence represents an emotional laziness. That can mean that our emotions can go through a turmoil that is due to our lack of feeling, let's say, the depth of our emotions or really being on the surface of an emotion. How are we on the surface of an emotion? Well, if something bothers you, it triggers you, it sets you off, you can go into this very high level emotion with a lot of thinking and a lot of words, etc. But when we're in the deep emotion, we really just feel the emotion. So let's say someone passes away and we go through that feeling of grief, the tears come to the surface, or we experience something very sad, um, like a part of our lives wherein we experience some kind of trauma and we discover that trauma and it releases from the body. We usually get this sort of single tear. It's not a big dramatic tear. So, this is sort of an instruction from the cards that we need to get deeper instead of being in the storm of our emotions. So, when we're in the storm of our emotions, so you see somebody, angry, banging the table and throwing things across the room, they're in the storm. If they were really with the emotion, they may experience it very differently because anger, its natural function in the body is to move things. Yes, it can move things out of the way, but you would move something out of the way. It also could function as something like uh, somebody physically thwarting your path, and you need to, let's say, get to your child, and someone is trying to stop you uh, because they want to do some kind of nefarious something nefarious towards you, or let's say they are, the Machiavellian or narcissistic. They have that dark triad or dark tetrad, and you might go, hey, we'll move these people out of the way so I can save my child. But we are not consistently in that type of situation. Though it can exist, it is natural, just like a, a lioness will protect her cubs, right? So an eagle will swoop down and protect its children as well. So those are very, very natural. That is the natural use, natural feel of the emotion. So you can go through. In Chinese medicine, we have anger, sadness, joy, grief, fear, worry. There are five um, basically five emotions. In psychology, we often say fear is the foundation of all of them. So if you look at a card like this and we don't want to, feel our emotions, usually we're in a place of fear, and that fear can be hidden under all these other emotions. So very often someone who's super angry, I'm talking about a healthy person, not someone who's narcissistic, etc. Your average person who's going through an emotion, they can get really angry, and it's actually fear, right? That emotion is it's too difficult to face the fear, so we pull away. Someone who's kind of grumpy, someone who kind of cuts you off, and doesn't want to have a discussion. They'll just state things. That's because they're terrified terrified of life, terrified of having a discussion, terrified of being in the world. You might know people like that in your family. People who just kind of go, okay, I'm just going to separate from you. I don't really want to talk to you. I don't want to be with you. I'm not talking about when it's serious abuse, okay? I'm talking about, uh, something that has to do with a normal, healthy bunch of people. Healthy is, a stretch, right? In some ways, all families are not healthy, but when we do have the capacity or awareness to be able to go in and start to look at those emotions in a very active way. So sometimes our triggers take us there and we kind of go, wait, why was I triggered in that circumstance? Why was I upset in that circumstance? We might say that. And if we notice that, we say, hey, maybe I need to look at that and see what's going on. What are my expectations? That's a really good question. That's usually when I get angry. I tend to have high expectations of those people that I love, and then that's a terrible thing to have high expectations of the people you love because you expect them to be, better than anyone else because you love them, blah, blah, blah. I've discovered this, within myself. And then I go, hey, what am I doing? We're all just people and we shouldn't have those high expectations, you might hear like, I expect more from you. And I have a lot of people who tell me that, Terry-Ann, I expect more from you. It's like, yeah, but I'm just human, right? So we all do it. I use myself as an example. And sometimes after, I don't know, probably 20,000 hours, I'm sure it's more than 20,000 hours of listening to people since, I was a kid, I was kind of like Lucy in the Peanuts comic strip, psychiatrist 5 cents. I was always the one everyone came to for advice. Not everyone liked it. Much like being online here, you see that I don't have a huge following, and the reason for that is I don't sensationalize anything. I think, unless I'm truly not interesting, but I have quite a large practice, and I've been practicing since 1995. So there's the period of time I did this, for free, and then there's 1995 onward. I've been doing energy healing and work professionally, and have clients internationally, but I don't sensationalize this. Life is hard enough as it is, not to bring up simple ways to heal things. You can go on to all kinds of different YouTube and TikTok stations, all these different stations on how to fix things, and it's supposed to be really easy. I'm not saying don't try it. Of course, try it, but usually it doesn't work. Usually it takes a lot more. Like this card. I could probably talk for 10 hours, but I am going to use 3 cards here. So that is the primary energy. Generally, all of us humans, humanity, is lazy when it comes to emotional content. So that's going to be an average, right, of everyone on the planet. So you're going to have people who are very much not tuning in to their emotions at all. They could just be ranting and raving. Then there's the other group who may look, the other extreme may look deeply at their emotions, really feel them. They're mostly reclusive types. Now, most of us hang around the midline, if you think of a bell curve, that we're in the middle of the bell curve, and that grouping of people is where we struggle. We kind of go, hey, what's going on? How do I get a handle on my emotions? How do I take care of my emotions? How do I work through this indolence? Now, there are 2 things that can go on. You could be going through a phase, so it will go away, but will return. And every time it returns, you get a greater and greater peek at it. So you might say, hey, this has happened to me before. I've been in a space where, I'm extremely emotional, then it goes away, but it comes back. And as time goes by, it starts to get stronger and stronger when you start feeling like, hey, I should know better by now. So that would mean you haven't really faced it. So it's a good indicator when these things come back that you need to face them. Let's see what else it says. Well, the cards are really telling us that, yeah, this definitely needs to shift and change. This must change. So we're looking at definitely transforming how we experience our emotional state. Let's see what the conclusion is. Um, the conclusion is happiness. So, it looks like we're going to go through an emotional state that requires transformation and that will lead to a greater happiness. But don't forget the things that were said at the beginning, because there's no way each person is going to go through a transformation of these very, confused emotions in which we're not really looking in at them, that transformation will lead to a healing. This says it leads to happiness. It doesn't say it leads to, hey, they're healed. That's your choice, right? And that'll make you happy and the world happy. Let's see, how well am I doing? And there's the ruin card. So that says, hey, there's a lot more to the mental activity that goes on than we can see. So we've got, when the ruin card comes, it says, well, we must ruin certain aspects of the mind. So what does that mean? Well, let's say you're defending your position. You say, well, I'm really emotional because I'm really tired, because so and so is to blame, because this, that. That means that, some of that could be valid. I don't know. I'm not going to speculate on that. But this reading is saying, watch out. Watch out. Look, keep your eyes peeled, because those things can very often be an indicator that something is not dealt with within you. Now, if somebody gets up and, purposefully does something awful to you, like pushes you, so you fall down, that's clearly something someone has done. You can take action. But when you have to look for all kinds of excuses and reasons for why you think you're justified, it is not just a straight up, let me go and deal with this. It's not straightforward. And when it's not straightforward, your mind, this is the thoughts that are in the mind, not your rationale, not your intellect, not your intuition. It's not any of those things. It is the mind that uses a bunch of thought patterns, and they are patterns that are limiting your, or tamping down your emotions, so that they come out all, they spew out, or they get all upset, or you get frustrated, or you get resentful, or all of these different things. So this is really saying, look, even if you get to a place where you're happy, you may have to go back and really ruin how the mind deals with things. So it's only the mind that would be in the way in this case. So some deep stuff there, and hope that helps you out. Please like, share, and subscribe. Send some questions. And I'll continue next week to see. I think my next question will be, what lesson is the world being asked to learn right now? So I'm very curious about that. All right, take it easy. Have a great week, and see you on the flip side. Bye.